Good morning. Today we are going to continue the previous lecture. The topic was right of unpaid sailor, and one of the right we have seen, that is right of lien, and today we are going to see the right of stoppage in transit. Okay. Now what is the right of stoppage in transit? Means the goods are given to the buyer but not directly, they are in the transit. Means the goods are being like sent by consignment and all, and they are in between. Transit is a space, or you can say the area where the goods are going and not yet reached the buyer. Okay, now what is the transit means an intermediate stage. Goods are deemed to be in the course of transit from the time they are delivered to the carrier or other bailey for the purpose of transmission to the buyer until the buyer or his agent take the delivery. Means in between, means the sailor has lost his possession, he himself has given it to the carrier, the transport, or he has put the consignment in a truck and the truck driver is taking those goods to the buyer. So when the goods are being loaded in the truck, means the possession has been given to the carrier, the transporter, and now the goods are in the transit on the way, and yet the buyer has not taken the possession or his agent has not taken the possession. That is a transit, or that is a duration of the transit. And right to stoppage in transit is what? The unpaid sailor will stop. He will not allow the goods to be delivered to the buyer. He can regain the possession. Okay. So right of stoppage in transit is a right of stopping the goods in transit after the unpaid sailor has parted with the possession of the goods. He has the further right of resuming possession of the goods as long as they are in the course of transit and retaining or regaining possession. He can take the possession back from the carrier and he will exercise his right to lien and he will say, give the money back. Now this right of an unpaid sailor to stop the goods in transit is available to him in two circumstances. That is, first, the goods must be in transit, and the second is when the buyer becomes insolvent. So right of stoppage in transit can be exercised only when the goods are in transit and the buyer becomes insolvent. Means the sailor is selling the goods, the ownership has passed, he has lost possession also because he himself has delivered the goods to the transporter. Okay. Now the carrier can be the agent of sailor. At that time he can exercise not the right of stoppage in transit, he can exercise the lien itself, because the possession of his own agent is possession of the principal, that is a sailor. So if the carrier is the sailor's agent, in this case the sailor has lien on the goods and the question of right of transit does not arise. Stoppage in transit does not arise. Okay. The second is, if the carrier is the buyer's agent, then the possession is lost and also the possession is being taken by the buyer himself. So though the goods are in transit, the possession is not of the sailor, the possession is of the buyer. In this case also he cannot exercise the right of stoppage in transit. And the third is in an independent capacity, means the carrier, the transporter, is not the agent of the sailor nor the agent of the buyer. At that time he can exercise the right of stoppage in transit. Okay. So if the carrier is sailor's agent, then the sailor is having right to lien. When the carrier is buyer's agent, then the possession is lost, the buyer has got the possession, therefore the sailor is not having right to lien, neither having right to stoppage in transit. So right to stoppage in transit can be exercised only when the carrier is holding those goods in an independent capacity. Now when the transit will come to an end? The transit will come to an end when the buyer takes the possession, or the agent of the buyer, they take the possession, that is the carrier, the transporter, the truck driver, he delivers the goods to the buyer or his agent. Okay. At this moment the transit will come to an end. Now how we are going to stop the goods in transit? We are going to stop the goods in transit by directly taking the possession, by taking the possession of the goods, or we can inform to the carrier that don't send the goods further, bring it back. I will pay you the money. So by taking actual possession of the goods, the right can be exercised, or by giving notice of his claim to the carrier or other bailee in whose possession the goods are, that don't take it further, bring it back. Okay. Now this is right of stoppage in transit. So what is the difference between right to lien and right to stoppage in transit? Right to lien can be exercised when possession is there, and right to stoppage is exercised when the possession of the sailor is lost and the goods are in transit. Okay, now we will see one by one the distinction between both the rights. First is the unpaid sailor's right to stop the goods in transit arises only when the buyer becomes insolvent. But right to lien can be exercised at any time, means the buyer is not insolvent but is not paying also. At that time, right to lien can be exercised. So the first is what? Right of unpaid sailor to stop the goods in transit can be exercised only when the buyer becomes insolvent. That is not the case in right of lien. That is first. Second is what? Right to lien can be exercised when possession is there. But right to stoppage in transit can be exercised when possession is lost or possession is with the middleman who can be stopped. Okay, this is the second point of distinction. The third is right of lien comes to an end when the possession of the goods is surrendered to the carrier. Then only right to lien comes to an end. Means right to lien comes to an end and right to stoppage is coming into existence. Okay, so right of lien comes to an end when the possession of the goods is surrendered by the sailor, but the right of stoppage in transit commences when the goods have left the possession. So one comes to an end, one right comes to an end, the other right gets into existence. Right of lien is lost when possession is lost, but once possession is lost and the goods are in transit, the sailor is having right to stoppage in transit. Okay. The last one is what? The right of lien is to retain possession, while the right of stoppage in transit is to regain, or you can say resume possession. So this is the difference between right to lien and right to stoppage in transit. Now we were seeing the topic what? Right of an unpaid sailor, the rights which are against the goods and when the ownership has passed. The first right was right of lien, and the second right today we saw was right to stoppage in transit. Both rights are connected to each other because when one right comes to an end, the other right comes into existence. Right of lien can be exercised only when possession is there, and right of stoppage in transit can be exercised when possession of the sailor is lost. Lost in the sense he has delivered the goods to a third person who is neither the agent of the sailor nor the agent of the buyer. He is a middleman. He is doing his business of transport. He is taking the goods and giving it to the buyer. So he is holding the goods as a middleman. So when the goods are with the middleman and they are in the transit, at that time right to stoppage in transit can be exercised. Okay. So these are the two rights of an unpaid sailor against the goods personally. Now the third right is what? Right of resale. Now why it is called as resale? Because already the sailor has sold the goods, isn't it? He is an unpaid sailor, na? So already the goods have been sold. The buyer has taken the goods. The property in the goods has also passed to the buyer, and now the buyer is not paying money to the sailor. So the sailor becomes unpaid. Now what he can do? As he is having the possession, he can resell it. Okay. Now this right we are going to see in the next video, because we will not be able to complete that right. Okay. Bye bye. See you.